A very good morning to all of our listeners today. Paradigm is back with yet another episode, and today I'm sitting with a woman who has stirred considerable debate in the world of alternative health, to say the least. Known for her controversial health advice and wellness retreats, Barbara O'Neill has navigated a career marked by both fervent support and sharp criticism. And despite being banned from providing health services in Australia due to concerns about the safety of her recommendations, Barbara continues to advocate for her beliefs internationally. And here she is with me today. Barbara, I have no words. Absolute pleasure to have you, honestly.
It's great to be here.
Welcome to Dubai.
Thank you.
How is it treating you so far, apart from being extremely hot?
Extremely hot outside and extremely cold inside. I'm adjusting.
Right. I would say it's not the healthiest thing, but we all adjusted after a couple of years, I think, we just became
That's
used
true.
to it.
It's one of the most amazing things about the body is its ability to adapt and adjust.
Of course. So, Barbara, where do we even start? I want to take you all the way back in time, I guess, for the beginning of the interview and just kick off the conversation by asking, how did your early childhood, early adulthood look like? Who was that young Barbara O'Neill?
Well, I grew up in an average Australian home. I'm fifth generation Australian Scottish descent. We went to school every day, went to the Presbyterian church every Sunday morning. All my neighbours, relatives, everyone grew up basically the same. In fact, I thought everyone in the world ate sausages or chops, mashed potatoes or frozen peas or beans every night of the week. But when I was about 17, I had a boyfriend who had a mate who was a vegetarian. I'd never heard of a vegetarian. I'd never heard of brown bread. And I guess that's what happens when we become teenagers and the world opens a little bit more. And I started to look at other ways. And it wasn't till I had children in my early 20s, I didn't want to give them drugs. So I began to explore natural remedies then. So my daughter that I did a lot of experimenting on is 47 now. So I've been doing this for about 45 years.
Right. Would you say you've had any mentors or role models growing up?
A little bit here and there. The neighbour that first taught me about onion poultices for earaches, I was 25, she's 85. So a lot of these people that were my advisors in some ways, they're not with us anymore. And it struck me the other day, actually, I'm the grandmother now.
Right. Time flies. Time really does fly. But tell me, any particular experiences that essentially influence the way you look at everything, apart from, asking her, and I heard the story about the onion rings and healing the ear pain. Were there any other particular experiences that kind of struck you where you realized, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yes, well, certainly the onion experience was a turning point in my life. And it was when I was about 26, something else happened. I became a Christian. And when I became a Christian, I stopped smoking marijuana. I wanted my mind clear because I wanted to know God. And I thought to myself, how does God see healing? What does God want us to do to the body? And, of course, it's not hard, I think, to determine that, is the healing power he put in the body. We need to know that and work with that because that's really how the body heals. An orthopedic surgeon said to me one day, I can set a bone, but I cannot heal a bone.
Right.
And I think we all know that, but we often know things, but we don't think about it.
And we have a very strong self-healing mechanism, right?
We do. In fact, it's more than most people realise.
Right. And I mean, it's funny you say, you became Christian at 26. I feel like a lot of us just need to remove that tap that was placed onto us. And then everything just starts making sense.
Well, that's why I considered it, because everything made sense. I also grew up in a home where I'm the daughter of an inventor and my brother's an inventor. And so everything that came into the home was pulled apart because Dad and Dave wanted to know why.
Okay.
And so all through my life, it's been instilled to me from a young age, you need to know why. You need to know why. And medicine didn't make sense to me. You were just told to do this, you should, or even when I got into natural medicine, do this because it's good for you. I don't want to know that. I want to know why.
Sometimes it's difficult to find out why, right? It's not always easy.
It's not always easy, but in my investigations as to whys, I find that even if you don't know exactly why, you do get some indications.
You get a feeling.
Yeah, some indications or some little things that happened. You know, my knee sore. Well, did anything happen? Well, I fell out of a tree when I was 3. Aha.
And there we go.
So it's looking at the history and piecing together all the bits and pieces that come together to make us who we are.
And it's crazy how many people tend to look back maybe maximum 5 years into their life.
Yes.
And I guess when you're 40 and you start having some recurring diseases or pain syndromes, and nobody ever asks you, okay, well, let's go back to when I was born. Let's go back to when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. What type of kid was I then? What happened then that made...
That's right, because you're absolutely right. We are what we are today because of all of that. Even in utero, birth.
Of course.
All of that makes us who we are today. And you can't change that, but it explains why.
Of course. And then we can enter the subconscious mind even and talk about NLP therapy and the way you enter the subconscious mind to actually understand why do you feel certain emotions? Why are certain organs misfunctioning, right? But we'll get back to that later. I'm a huge fan in general of Joe Dispenza and holding in emotions and why our organs are dysfunctioning. But to go back to your little investigations, I wanted to ask you, what were your, let's say, main sources of information? Would you find a book that you would love to read and you would start learning there, or was it someone that you watched, listened to?
It was probably mostly books because I'm an avid reader and have been since a child. People like The Old Lady Next Door and The Onion, that was really probably a small amount, but it did start me on the journey. But I read and I read and I read. And if anyone said to me, this is a good book, you should read it, I had it in my hand by the end of the day.
Right.
I would read it. Some of the books I learned a lot out of. Some of the books I learned a little bit out of. But I always think there are things you can learn.
And with time you start developing your own opinion as well.
That's right.
Because you have more information and...
That's right. And that's why when my husband said to me in 2019, when the ban came, you can retire if you like, that we can do that, or you can travel overseas. I said to Michael, I feel great. I feel no different to what I felt when I was 40, 30. I've got so much information in my mind, in my brain, so much experience, it would be wrong
not
to
to
stop.
Now is the time.
Now is the time, because I have felt the frustration as a young mother, not wanting to give my child drugs, not knowing what to do, but not wanting to put my child in danger. I felt that.
Of course.
And I want to be to mothers, to actually anyone, what I never had.
Of course. How did you meet Michael?
Well, I first met
back
Michael.
in time.
Yes, I first met Michael when our children were smaller. We met at homeschool camps because I homeschooled my children. He homeschooled his children.
Oh, really? Okay.
And our children were younger then. And so over the years, we'd meet again at a camp. He was married then, I was married then.
Okay.
And then my daughter went to work for him, and by then he was single, I was single. I ended up going and living in that area. And after about a year of moving up there, he asked me to marry him.
Beautiful. And obviously, you said...
I said yes.
Right. Now, tell me, where did the Misty Mountain come in to all of this? Or should I say the Mysterious Mountain, and giving you headlines to all the media out there?
Mysterious Mountain.
Yeah. Tell me about that a bit.
Well, 1 year after we married, but I have to go back a little bit, that probably when I was maybe late 30s, I had some knowledge, and because I was treating my children, and my girlfriends used to say, you never go to the doctor, and your children are wrapped up in poultices and things. What's all this? And I would tell them, but in a crisis, they would go to the doctor. And I thought, what can I do? And one morning I was praying, and God put under my heart, give meetings. Show the people how to do it. And I used all my kids, I'd wrap them up in poultices, have their feet in hot water, and they were used to it. And they thought it was quite comical having all these people looking at them wrapped up. So I'd been doing that for maybe about 10 years, just giving meetings here and there, maybe twice a year. And then I married Michael, and after 1 year, he said, I want to start my own retreat, because he'd been the business manager of a retreat. I said, great. And he said, Julia, my daughter, she's 15. She'll be the cook. Jessica done a massage course. My other daughter, she'll be a massage therapist. The boys
Family
will be the
business.
gardeners. His daughter will be his secretary. She's a good typist, even though she's 11. We had a team. I said, who'll be the health director? He said, you. I said, oh, no.
Don't put me under that. No.
I'm just a mother, and I just help other mothers. And he said, no, you'll be good. And he walked out of the room. And I thought...
That was that.
And so I became the reluctant health director. I'm not reluctant to help. I love to help, but I was scared of the limelight. I was very, very shy. In fact, when we started, Michael would start the lectures, then he'd ask me questions, and when he got me talking, he'd slip out of the room.
Oh, really? And you would just do your magic?
And then I would talk. And we started small, so it's never ever would I believe that I am where I am today, and I can speak to thousands, and I don't get nervous because I know they're just interested in what I've got to say, and I feel a great responsibility to deliver it accurately.
Right.
So that's where my mind is.
Right. What were some of the natural, let's say, treatments that you guys offered in the retreat?
And it's still very busy today. We keep it very simple. We do simple water treatments, alternating hot and cold, steam saunas, herbs. In fact, we've got a Misty WhatsApp, so I'm always looking at every day, what are they doing? And occasionally they go, Barbara, what do we do for this? And I'll put a little comment in. So we keep it very, very simple. It's really lifestyle, drinking more water, going to bed earlier, simple water treatments and herbs. We keep it very simple because I think it's been too complicated for too long.
Right. Do you take away electronics?
Well, we give people the choice, but we do shut our Wi-Fi off at 9 o'clock at night.
As we do at home as well. Right. Tell me, do you have any sort of favorite story of someone that, came in to the retreat and came out as a changed individual?
We have many. So the hardest thing for me is to choose one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because there are so many. It's quite incredible. It's just the best work to see people turn around, especially when you get your most difficult guests who will complain about everything, that at the end of the week say, this was the most amazing experience of my life. That is really nice. But I think Elizabeth Cott really shines. She came to us with 3 tumours in her abdomen. She was told that she had to do chemotherapy immediately, but she didn't like the sound of it. And that's what I say to everyone. Do you know it's our God-given right to choose what we do to our body? And she made the choice to come to our retreat.
Funny.
She said, anything you say, I will do. I love it when people say that because I think this person will get results because they're willing to do it.
And they have the trust.
They have the trust. And she did it. She went back 3 months later and the doctor said, just keep doing what you're doing. She went back 6 months later. He said, it's a little strange, but one of your tumours is totally gone.
Oh, really?
So little by little, she totally healed. She said that she goes to see the doctor once a year and has tests. She said the oncologist there, the specialist there, the doctors there, they're just looking at her. They can't understand it because her first appointment, the doctor said, you've got to do chemo straight away.
Of course.
Or you might not survive. Well, I think it's 10 years later now, and she's giving classes now. She's so excited about her new lease on life. She would be maybe late 70s now. She said to me in her late 60s when within a year of implementing everything, she said, I feel better now than I felt in my 40s.
There you go. And I mean, this is the way you grow your community. And that's what's important at the end of the day.
And it's putting back the power in our own individual hands.
Of course.
This is my body. It's got an inbuilt ability to heal itself. And I'm the one that chooses what I do.
Right.
It's my God-given right.
Right. And a lot of people lost that.
They have. They don't realise that you actually don't have to do this.
Exactly.
You can choose what you do to your body. No man has the control over you and your body.
Right. But at the end of the day, it's also a choice to choose others making that choice for you. If that makes any sense,
It is choice, and really we should make all our choices on information.
Yeah.
not on what he said or what she said. Doesn't make sense.
Right. Right. Is there any other, let's say, common health issues that you notice when people do come to your retreats, apart from the story of Elizabeth?
Regarding cancer, it's a small part. We could go 3 programs and not have anyone come with cancer. And we always say with cancer, we don't know the outcome. We've seen people heal. We've seen 6 months go to 6 years. And we've seen the last days made more comfortable. We don't know. We'll just give it our best shot. Probably the most common would be high blood pressure, diabetes, weight gain, addictions. They're probably the most common complaints that come.
Which most often comes from the wrong diet, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's why our number one aim is education and teaching the basic laws of health, which is drinking more water, going to bed earlier, exercising every day.
But does this mean your patients actually pass through like lessons and
They do.
Okay.
They do.
Perfect.
So the first 2 days at our retreat are juicing days.
Okay.
But 8:30 to 10:30 every morning there's lectures. And the lectures are from various people. I used to do all the lectures. I think sometimes they show my DVDs. And we say to our guests, "This is you're going through the best education because you're hearing it to understand why, and you're experiencing it." So for a whole week, we arrange your life.
Beautiful.
When you get up, when you go to bed,
Right.
how much you drink, etc., etc. And our guests experience it, and really by the 3rd day, they're starting to feel it. Now, if they're coffee drinkers, the first day's not a happy day.
Right.
But we give hot foot baths to ease headaches and massage.
Right.
But it actually shows them, oops, this stuff's not doing me very
And coffee is a funny one because honestly, I'm not a coffee drinker. I've always been a tea drinker. And I don't understand this addiction to coffee that, 99% of the people have. Does it actually help, or do you think it's more of a psychological thing?
It certainly gives a lift. And so I wanted to know why. Why do people get that lift? And then I discovered that drinking a cup of coffee creates a little crisis in the body. And that lift that you get is the lift that you get when, oh no,
Oh, really? The reaction.
I don't know, something's just fallen over, run, and your body gives you that little boost of energy because your reaction has told the body, oops, there's a crisis, I need to move. I need to have extra energy. And so this reaction when people, and they sit there thinking, oh, this is nice, I've got a lift, my brain's working better. It's actually because your body thinks there's a little bit of a crisis. So the energy that you get, the lift you get is not from digestion of food. It's a chemical lift which comes from your adrenal glands. So eventually adrenal glands get exhausted. And so coffee 1, 2, 3 times a day, 10 years later, I go to the doctor, I'm always tired. Oh, you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, where it's actually
Here are your meds.
It's actually just that you've been running on a chemical rather than running on the energy that we should get from a good night's sleep, drinking adequate water, good fuel. That's where I get my energy.
And it's an addictive type of energy that you get through coffee.
It is.
That's the problem.
And one of the problems is, yes, it gives a lift, but then it gets a corresponding dump. And so the person then reaches for another one because they get addicted to that feeling good. And that's where that addictive cycle comes in.
I'm so relieved and happy that I haven't passed through this in my life. Thankfully, I'm 25 now. Won't go into it. Now, Barbara, we have to reach the let's say, nasty part of the interview now. Obviously, placing your name into Google, Barbara O'Neill, there's a lot of headlines that pop up. From The Guardian A banned promoter of cancer cures was hijacked by Gen AI. Now the internet is flooded with garbage. Africa check, don't trust home remedies from video, mimicking untrustworthy naturopath Barbara O'Neill. I mean, I just want to ask you, where did all of this start going wrong? What was the trigger, in your opinion?
And my response is, how can there be a crime if there's no victim? Because the fact is, there are no victims. There's no complaints from anyone who's been to our retreat. So then you go, well, how did this all begin? Mm-hmm. It really all began when my husband was outraged at the government stopping parents putting their children into childcare because they weren't vaccinated. In fact, my husband said someone's got to do something, so he started a political party, 2016, called Heart, Health, Environment, Accountability, Rights and Transparency. And whoa, have they gone after us. Mm-hmm. In fact, a journalist said to Michael when he started, she said, Michael, are you prepared to lose your job, lose your money, lose your house, lose your reputation? And Michael said, I am. I'm not 30. I'm in my 60s. And he said, someone's got to do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm proud of what he did. But you know what Michael was unprepared for? That they would take me down. Mm-hmm. And so what one anti-vax organisation did in Australia, they put out a request. They said, we want some volunteers to take this woman down.
Oh, yeah?
And 3 people came forward. And they went through everything I've said, and all they could come up with was, I suggest goat's milk if a mother can't breastfeed. That was one of the claims against me. And we laughed. We thought, this is ridiculous. We all grew up on Heidi, drinking goat's milk with Peter the goat boy, and Clara from the city was healed with the goat's milk and got out of her wheelchair. I think everyone grew up with that story. Mm-hmm. And not just that story, goat's milk has been used for centuries, and now I'm being criticised by advising goat's milk. I thought, how crazy is that?
And what does it have to do with COVID and the vaccine as well? It has nothing.
Well, no, but these claims came through
it was
early
before
2019. Mm-hmm. So July 2019 I was banned. So you see, that's just pre-COVID.
They were preparing it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. And you know what I found amusing? I'm in Scotland 2 years ago, and there's a lady there protesting, saying this woman's a threat to public safety. She put out on social media, come to the protest. No one came, but hundreds came to my lectures. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And she went to a journalist, and the journalist interviewed her. And she said, Barbara O'Neill's telling people to come off chemo and take sodium bicarbonate. And the journalist, who knows nothing, said, but isn't that their right?
Literally.
I thought, isn't that interesting? She could not get weight anywhere. She went to a politician and said, this woman's a threat to public safety. Da-da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he said, we've got to do something. But one of the students in my classes was a good friend of his. Mm-hmm. And she contacted him and said, no, this protester is, that's her life. She lives on Social Security and just goes from person who's speaking as I did, a person. And she said, no, this presenter speaks the truth. So he said, I'm going to drop that. So everywhere it started, it sort of quickly went out, because I'd like to suggest that the claims have no truth in them, and I haven't read them. There's no point in me reading them. But my son read them, and he said to me, Mum, they're all lies. They're all lies. And his girlfriend said, no, if it's a lie, they can't print it. Well, they do.
Of course they do.
And what they often will use is so much truth, but taking a little bit out.
Right, those media tactics. But tell me, did you ever feel like your life was in danger at a certain point?
I haven't. I never give that a moment's thought. Mm-hmm. My husband did tell me there was a few threats, but I have given my life to God, and if it's time for me to go, I say, thank you, Father, I'm almost home.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not time for me to go, no man can take me.
Right.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but I just do what I do, and I leave the results with God. And I know that He has angels that excel in strength.
Of course.
And if someone wants to take my life and it's not time, I know that it can't happen.
Especially because at this point you know that, your purpose in life. You were placed here to be that messenger.
And if it is time for me to go, I know that there are a lot of budding Barbara O'Neills.
Right, of course.
And maybe they're as shy as I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when the time's right,
mm-hmm.
they will come. My daughter Jessica, she's 43.
Mm-hmm.
She was very excited the other day. She said, Mum, I've just given my first hormone lecture.
Oh, really?
So I know that I'm not indispensable. And the information is not my information, it is God's information.
Mm-hmm.
And others will come up. And I'm very glad for others to come up and to ease out.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have energy, and
mm-hmm.
I love what I'm doing. So on I will go.
Of course. And I mean, it's important that at the end of the day, the community is bigger than what it was. And with every day that comes, I'm sure your community grows.
Yes, that's true.
And that's the most important thing. But tell me one thing, since you were banned from providing the health services in Australia, do you still manage to keep in touch with all of your, patients? How do you provide that valuable advice to them, even though they try putting a barrier and try, chaining you up? And
well, it's interesting that the very act of banning me has caused my information just to explode worldwide. And our retreat still runs because a lot of the people have worked with me for years, and it's the principles.
Mm-hmm. But, for example, the one thing that really stopped you from legalizing, let's say, everything that you do is to go and get that doctor's paper. This is what everybody has been talking about. You need to go specialize, do your education for 10 years, and have that paper with a stamp. This is when everything that you speak is the truth. Did you at any point think, okay, I'm going to do this because then, my value in society is going to be higher, or you never cared?
No, I never really cared. I worked as a psychiatric nurse. I didn't finish because I had babies. And they criticise that they say I failed.
Mm-hmm, of course.
And then
what do you expect?
And then when I'd been working with my children and other mothers and children, I came to the attention of the Thomsonian Institute in a town near me, and they awarded me a certificate in naturopathy under the grandfather clause. Mm-hmm. That was, I think, in about 1992.
Mm-hmm.
But the grandfather clause is not acknowledged now, so they criticise that I'm not a real naturopath. And then I did do a course in nutrition. I became I got a certificate in dietitian and nutrition, dietetics and nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
But after probably 10 years of me finishing that course, I had a provider number, so I had the qualifications. The school closed down, and so now they claim I'm not really a nutritionist because the school has closed down. So
they just keep chasing you.
When George Janko was interviewing me a few months ago, he said, "So, Barbara, what are your qualifications?" I said, "I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother of 24 and a half grandchildren, and I'm a great-grandmother of 3 and a half. And I teach mothers how to give their bodies and their little ones' bodies the right conditions for healing. I make no claims."
And that should be enough.
That should be enough. But that being said, the College of Naturopathic Medicine has recently made me an honorary member and awarded me a certificate as a naturopath, which
Beautiful.
I am very grateful for. And they said, "We have awarded it to you because of your contribution, which they feel is great in the field of natural medicine." So if someone wanted to pick hairs, yes, I have a certificate as a naturopath.
I mean, I feel like they've been just trying to catch you and chase you and do whatever it is that they can. But at the end of the day, if you're doing something right, you will have that backslash and the hate, and you know at that point you're doing something right.
That is true. You know, the Bible says you can do nothing against the truth, only for it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though at times it might seem like this is terrible, these accusations are terrible, you know, the truth still shines forward.
Of course. Now, tell me, you have obviously publicly rejected all of the mainstream, let's say, medical practices, vaccinations, antibiotics. And vaccinations is a separate story, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about antibiotics. Do you really believe that there is some sort of different way to cure accumulated bacteria in the body?
I do, and I think it's the human body. The human body, when given the right conditions, has this incredible immune system. And this immune system is designed to fight bacteria. But what I always say, well, why is it there? And then we explore that. For instance, I crashed on the bridge, and what hurt me the most was my finger. Now, this bridge is very old, and this dirty old splinter was under my fingernail. Now, if I did nothing, that finger would get bigger and what is called infected.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did was I put a grated potato poultice on it and slept with my finger up in the air all night with cushions around it. No pain. Next day, no swelling. It's still in there, but it's so much in that I can't get it. So for 3 days I did the grated potato poultice, and after 3 days I looked at it, pushed it, and this big lump of wood. When I say a big lump of wood, it was about, for a splinter it was big.
Mm-hmm, right. And it came
now,
out.
if I had not done anything to that, if I had not known to put a grated potato poultice on it, it would have got bigger and what they call infected. And if I went to the doctor, he would put me on antibiotics. There's an old saying that says, a stitch in time saves 9. Another old saying is, nip it in the bud.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do what I do, so that everyone knows about the grated potato poultice. Then they don't have to go to the doctor and don't have to get antibiotics. Right. I'm not against antibiotics. I believe that they may play a role in an extreme situation, but I believe they should only be kept for life-saving.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've got another problem today, and the World Health Organization, they've got a plaque in every doctor's office. The biggest health care risk today is the overuse of antibiotics.
And becoming immune to them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, weakening the immune system then.
That's right. The very system that God put in our body to help our bodies fight disease, it's wiping out.
Right. And then it's just a closed circle, and you keep going round and around.
That's right.
Now, why do you think that there's so many societies in the world have kind of placed their back and stepped away from nature?
I think that a lot of it stems from in crisis, as antibiotics can save a life. There's no doubt about that. And so everyone decided to go that way. And it was just so easy. And it's based on Pasteur's theory that germs cause disease. I don't believe that theory. I don't believe it's accurate. Germs play a role, but they're not the number one cause. And as Antoine Beauchamp, who was a contemporary at the time of Louis Pasteur, he said, disease is born innocent office. Now, can you see that the average person, they liked what Pasteur said, and Pasteur said, you poor thing, a germ has made you sick. Take this drug and all will be well.
Mm-hmm,
Whereas Antoine Beauchamp said, are you drinking enough water? Are you going to bed early enough? What sort of food are you eating? Why is this germ, bacteria manifesting itself in your body?
And why didn't your immunity fight
this
right. germ?
That's right. So this gets back to my upbringing in a home with inventors. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are these things so?
And I mean, the reason why I asked you about nature is because I watched this really cool video on YouTube about the Hippocratic Oath, which I'm sure you know of. And it was actually filmed at the University of Wisconsin. And there was this famous professor and lecturer. His name was Dr. Patrick. And he was basically introducing one of the very first lectures to this first-year medical students. And he spoke about the Hippocratic Oath. And he basically mentioned Hippocrates. I mean, we're going back 460 BC at this point, mentioning that he was the father of natural remedies and natural medicine, and how the human body should be treated as a whole rather than a sum of its pieces, right? And he argued the entire lecture that medicine has become more commercialized, that, we have a loss of communities of character now, and all of these things. So I wanted to ask your take on this, because I've rewatched this video, I think, 10 times in the last 5 years. Are we currently placing enough, of practice when it comes to the Hippocratic Oath? Do you think something went wrong in this entire process? Why did it go wrong?
There's a few things that came in. And by the way, I hate to correct you, but Hippocrates is called the father of medicine. Now, that's very interesting. It's not just naturopathic medicine, because if it was just naturopathic medicine, doctors would not take the Hippocratical Oath. It's the father of medicine. And what people don't realise is that in the mid-1800s, you could go to a university in America and be trained as a doctor and not study drugs. So drugs came into medicine. That's where everything changed. And the big money providers, the Rockefellers and the Rothschild, they put their money behind allopathic medicine, drugs, chemotherapy, radiotherapy. And the poor scientists, the investigators, they needed money to be able to do their trials, but they only funded the trials to the allopathic, and that's where the change started.
It's crazy, because if you do open Google, you're only going to see him being the father of natural medicine. They've plugged in that word.
They have, and what Hippocrates said is, let food be your medicine, medicine be your food. He also said all disease begins in the gut. He also says, in disease, look at the spine. So there's chiropractic and osteopathy. That comes into natural medicine, but that's certainly not in medicine today, mainstream. And if food is your medicine and medicine is your food, why aren't doctors studying food as medicine more? So I think it's a little bit of a hypocrisy to take the Hippocratical Oath, because they're just picking little bits out of Hippocrates rather than looking at the whole picture. And the whole picture is exactly what you say, looking at the whole body.
Right. And I mean, there's still a lot of countries in this world that, thankfully, we take India, we take Ayurvedic medicine in Sri Lanka and India, we take the traditional medicine in China, Africa, here in the Middle East. It makes me happy to see that there's still a majority of the world that mixes natural medicine and normal medicine. And unfortunately, I have to make the separation, right? But yeah, I still think that there is hope in a way, right?
That's true, because allopathic medicine, the way medicine is today, is very recent. It's very recent. We've been on the planet thousands of years, but this is only the last 100 years. And that's what a lot of people don't realise. And that's why it's so important to know history. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they put natural medicine together with witchcraft. They put natural medicine together with bloodletting. So, and they put it all in that basket.
Or they would say, yeah, we can go back in history, but look how many people died in the plague. Look how many people died in this event and that event. So they believe that people were just, I guess, falling apart and dying on a daily basis back in the Middle Ages.
Well, do you know what's interesting? I wanted to know why. Did you know that in the 1850s, all the sewage from London went into the Thames, and the people living in London drank the water out of the Thames?
I heard.
No wonder the Black Plague happened. No wonder. And what did the turnaround was not medicine, but Florence Nightingale.
Oh, really?
And what Florence Nightingale did, she brought in reforms. Now, she's not the only one, but she was definitely the British one. So she brought in hygiene, sanitation and nutrition. So when they hailed her as a heroine, she said, I'm not a heroine. All I did was increase hygiene. That's personal hygiene. Wash your body every day. Put clean clothes on every day.
Right.
Sanitation. Keep the house clean. Empty the rubbish. Sweep the floor every day. Wash the bathroom every week.
Right.
and nutrition. The body cannot heal without nourishment. So that's very much in line with Hippocrates' original writings.
Right. What do you think of Bach drops? Have you heard of the Bach drops, the homeopathic drops that they've created in the UK?
Well, I have not investigated homeopathy because I love water treatments, I love herbs, I love lifestyle, because every single person can do that. I'm not totally against homeopathy, and I realise it has helped others, but it's very similar to allopathic in that you need a practitioner and you don't actually know what's in those drops.
I see.
So maybe it's my training from early childhood
Right.
as why, what's in that.
Right.
And you will understand why I love Rudyard Kipling's poem. I'll just give you the first stanza. I have 6 trusty serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what, why, when, where, how, and who.
There you go. But why I mentioned Bach drops is because he actually includes a lot of, let's say, herbs and natural, let's say, plants. And he creates these drops for your emotional states. So, for example, you had Take Rescue Remedy when you feel anxious, and it's a mix of 5 different plants. So he really did a mix of homeopathy and nature. So take a look at it after. I want to hear your opinion on it once you research it a bit, because we've been using it our whole life. But yeah, moving on. What did I want to ask you? Yeah, I wanted to enter the mental states, mental health questions, since a lot of that came through from the audience, and I just wanted to kind of take 15, 20 minutes on that topic. Many of us now are worried about the future. Many of us now live in an era where, through media, through a lot of other things, we tend to feel more anxious. We tend to have more negative thoughts. We tend to be more pessimistic. Anxiety at this point, 284 million people are affected per year, 264 million affected from depression. Then we have 107 million from drinking, 71 from drug abuse. So these numbers keep rising and rising. I just want to ask, in your opinion, what are the contributing factors to this weakening mental state that the younger generations especially are feeling?
This is a subject of great interest to me because I worked as a psychiatric nurse.
Right.
And working in a psychiatric nurse, I didn't see people get better. I saw them managed, but actually not managed very well. I saw the same people come back again and again. So it was of great interest to me, but I put it on hold because I had lots of babies. I was pregnant or breastfeeding 14 years non-stop, up in the rainforest, loved it. And so it was probably about the 1990s, when I was 40 in 1993, I attended a lecture by a Dr. Neil Nedley, an American doctor, and he noticed that a lot of his patients were on antidepressants, and this shocked him. So this is the mid-90s, early 90s.
$1 billion industry in the States.
Absolutely, and he's a medical doctor, and he thought, I'm going to try some lifestyle changes. And he said that if the lifestyle changes could equal the effect of medication on someone who's depressed, he said he'd be happy. And I'll never forget his next statement. He said, far exceeded. So lifestyle changes far exceeded the ability to manage depression. I have to tell you, I was on the edge of my seat. This is what I'd been looking for but had put on hold. And he's got a book called Depression Way Out by Dr. Neil Nedley. And every chapter starts with someone else's story, because this is one other thing, is we are all different.
Of course.
And that's why I believe we all should be our own doctors. And we are a combination of all that stuff that's happened in our lives.
And we all have that unique experience.
That's
that nobody
right.
else has
and
passed
so
through.
Always when someone has a problem, and we're talking about mental, I look at why. Why? And one question that I always had when I was the health director at Misty Mountain Health Retreat was, did you have a happy, healthy childhood? And some people would say, yeah, and then I'd move on. Some people would stop, and I'd think,
There we go.
There we go. And some people would burst into tears. And so my bottom line is why? So I always investigate, because there's always a cause. And as Neil Nedley says, you can't just catch depression. You can't just catch this. You've got to find out why. What's going on in there? And this is a principle in psychiatry, and the Bible talks about it. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what people talk about is usually it. What comes out of their mouth, out of the abundance of the heart. So what's the most pressing issue?
Even if it's through a joke.
This.
Even if
That's right. Many a true thing has been said in jest. And if I may, I'm going to give you a short story of this.
Go for it.
You might remember, you might not remember the Bali bombing, where there was a big bomb that went off in Bali, and this was probably early 2000s, and a lot of Australians were killed, so Australians know it. So we had a lady come to our retreat who'd come out of the Bali bombing, and she said that she has 8 of them, 8 girls, all turned 40, go to Bali to celebrate. 4 were in the it's like a bar. 4 were killed, and the other 4 were on their way. So now the government has actually paid for her to come to this retreat. So I'm sitting with her, counselling sessions, and she began to talk. And as she talked about it, I got the impression that she dealt with that quite well. But what she talked about most was her husband. Her husband's a musician. He's a dope smoker. And that's what she's talking about. And I thought, I thought we were talking about the Bali bombing. But this was pressing in her mind. And her 10-year-old daughter said to her about a week after she'd come back, she kept flying off the handle. She said, "Mum, is there something else?" And I said...
And children notice.
I said, out of the mouth of babes comes truth. So we had several sessions, and because of what she was talking about the 3rd session, I said, "I think your daughter was right." I said, "There is something else. You left in an unhappy marriage. A tragedy happened. You came back, not to healing, not to being helped, but you came back to more trouble."
Interesting.
And so we spent all our sessions on the husband. So I got her to write a letter to her husband. I like the sandwich effect. Start with "I love you very much." In the middle, "You're drinking, your marijuana concerns me. What are we going to do?"
Right.
Last one, "I'm sure we can work this out." Something like that.
Right.
And she went home a different woman.
I can imagine.
We'd found the cause.
The cause.
And it actually wasn't Bali.
Right.
It was some, as tragedy as that was, she was in a community and they were helping, her girlfriend's husbands and kids, and I think that's another important part is doing something that helps with healing.
But do you believe in generational trauma?
I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. Because I believe that each one of us has choice. I don't believe in genetics causing disease either. In fact, the current figures are this, that 5% of problem can be applied to genetics. Because so often people say, "Sorry, it's not me, it's my genes." And so that same thing, I believe, can be applied to generation. It's not me, it's what my ancestors did. So we each have choice, and I believe it's a beautiful thing that God gave us, is that we're not in slavery to our genes, and we're not in slavery to problems that happened a few generations ago. We can look at it and say, that happened.
How can I be a better person?
I don't
how can
like
I
it.
change? Yeah.
I don't agree with what happened, but it's not part of my life. And that's the amazing thing about the brain, is that there's a proverb, Proverbs 7:23. It says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." And I think that really hits it on the head.
Of course.
If I say my ancestors did this, and it can start to affect you. So
thoughts materialize, for sure.
That's right. So we have more say over what we think than we think we do.
Right. Is there any way that we can make our society wiser, stronger, reunite our society with faith, in your opinion? Because a lot of it has been lost, let's say, in the last few decades.
It has. For instance, if someone comes to us with depression, the first thing I do is we get them to drink more water. We get them to go to bed earlier. we ease them off the stimulants, we get their body nourished. And when their body's nourished, their brain's nourished. And this front part of the brain where we make our decisions is also reason, intellect and judgment. So once all that starts to work better, now we have a look. Okay, what happened? How did this start? My uncle touched me when I was 10. I'm so sorry to hear that. That was wrong. So I'm very strong on that. That was a crime. Because so many young people, they think that they must have been the cause. They're embarrassed. They don't tell anyone. So I'm very strong on defining that that is wrong.
Okay.
Now what are we going to do with that? And then I work on forgiveness. And I find forgiveness incredible on the freedom that it brings. And as one lady said, but they don't deserve it. I said, that's right, but it's got nothing to do with it.
Right.
It's the best selfish decision that you will make. And I read this in an old book. Forgiveness is the only prescription in the entire universe that has the power to break the chemical bonds of hostility, anger and hate. That's very powerful. And the other thing to remember is you don't have to feel like it. That's another part of the brain. Just do it. Because when you do it, as the days go by, then your feelings respond. And that's what a lot of people don't realise, that this front part of the brain, that's like your board of sensors, your board of critiques. Your feelings go up and down like the wind. And the feelings were designed to go through this front part, and that's where we say, I won't say that. That's a good thing to say. Isn't that interesting? So part of my lectures, I give lectures on this. On the brain, on the two parts of the brain, and how we can strengthen that front part where we make our decisions. And it's like all this criticism of me. It doesn't bother me because I know it's not true. And I know I've done nothing wrong. As one man in Australia said, he gets criticism for putting my lectures up. He said, if she was guilty, she'd be in jail.
Of course.
And that is true too. So you have no say over what people say, but what you have say over is what you do with it.
Of course. Have you heard of the grand study that Harvard has done on happiness by any chance?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't recently looked at that.
Right. Oh, so they've done this 85-year-old, let's say, study on happiness and what actually makes people happy and what actually makes people content. And eventually the conclusion was that embracing the community, let's say, helps a lot to live longer, to be happier. Would you agree that society plays a big role in our happiness?
Absolutely, and I'm certainly familiar with the effect of happiness. I've read other studies, not that recent one you talked about. But there's also the blue zone. You might have heard of the blue zone. And the three common denominators with these people that live long lives is they eat natural food. Number two is they're active. Number three is they're social. And that brings exactly what you're talking about, is the community. And one old book, I love reading old books, new books, all of them, and you'll find truth. There's a thread of truth. Truth does not change through it all. And this old writer said, doing good for others is an excellent remedy for disease.
Interesting.
is helping other people, being mindful of others. But the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks.
Right. Have you heard of the one in Proverbs 13, I think, verse 20, where they say, walk with the wise, become the wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm.
He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools will be destroyed. Absolutely. So that also brings in who are you with, what are you watching, what are you reading, because it's all having an effect, and that brings us to neuroplasticity, soft-wired brain. They always thought our brain was hardwired, but it's not, and they've proven that it is not. In other words, even if your ancestors did this, a few generations, even if your parents did this, you don't have to. In fact, you are the master of your destiny. You can make a decision to say today, no, I'm not going to go there. Right. And that might sound easy. It's not.
Right.
It's not, but the research shows that you can make a decision to go a certain way, and in 21 days you've got a pathway. In 60 days you've got a cement pathway. But changing our habits, that's not easy. And that's where I come back to physical. Well hydrated, well slept, well fed, well sunned. Nothing coming in that's going to interfere with the balance in my brain. Then you can make a stronger decision to say, actually, no thanks.
I've actually read an interesting book by Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that book helped me a lot, and I've manifested a lot of things thanks to it. But it's fun you say that we actually need, how many weeks, let's say, to actually bring our...
The research shows 21 days to
21 days.
Develop a new pathway, because these are pathways that are solid pathways in our brain. That's why we're the creatures that go down the path of least resistance. But it's actually 60 days before we term it in cement.
Right. Barbara, since we're running out of time, I just have a couple more questions for you, and then we'll move on to the audience questions. But I usually ask my guests if I were to give them a time machine, and they can go all the way back in time, what would they tell a younger version of themselves? What would you tell a young Barbara? Would there be anything that you would have changed?
Not really. I grew up in a happy home, which I'm very thankful for. And I got into natural medicine fairly early. I was very happy to be able to homeschool my children. So I'm very grateful to God that I can actually say I really don't have regrets.
Beautiful. Now, we have quite a lot of audience questions that came through for you. And I'm just going to try pick and choose the top ones. So we have Marta, and she asked you, what do you believe on the topic of veganism and vegetarianism?
I don't call myself a vegan because I was in Wales 2 years ago at a plant-based conference, and they served carrot cake that had white fluff on top. I said, what's that fluff? They said, it's vegan. And I said, I know cream, I know coconut cream, but what's that? And then they brought out a spray can, and you spray it, and this white fluff comes out. And I read the ingredients, and it had all these bad oils, chemicals, sugar. From that day, I don't call myself a vegan.
Right,
because I realised that refined sugar's vegan, chemicals are vegan. I call myself plant. I'm a plant-based lady. I eat plants. Occasionally I might have an organic egg. Occasionally I might have a little feta. But on the whole, I eat plants.
What's your opinion on meat then?
If someone loves meat and wants to eat meat, it's their choice. I don't, and I don't eat it. But it must be organic, because you just walk into the abattoirs today, you just have a look at what cows are given and how you wouldn't want to eat it anymore. But I do understand that there are some carnivores out there who are proud and happy that they are. But I basically think that they're getting results because they've come from the high carb. I think they've come from one extreme to the other.
Right.
We need our veggies. We need our fruit. We need a little grain.
Up next, we have a question from Boyana. Which shampoo for the hair do you recommend? Do you have some specific brand?
Well, I'm sorry I can't define this, because every country I go to, there are different brands. But I look for a plant-based, natural one, and I look for one that has no sodium lauryl sulfate, because sodium lauryl sulfate causes shampoo to foam, and yet it kills the hair follicles. So really, you just have to read your labels.
All right. Up next, what's your opinion on protein shakes?
Protein shakes, I don't use them, but at our health retreat, we do use them. And we use a pea protein. And I do understand that some people who maybe are bachelors or bachelorettes and they don't want to cook, they'll make themselves a protein drink in the morning. And I know some of our staff do it. Just make sure that the protein powder is, doesn't have chemicals or refined sugars in it. But personally, I love cooking. I taught all my children to cook. We're like the big Italian family when we get together.
Beautiful.
Everyone's cooking and sharing. I like food and I like chewing.
Now, a question that came through 3 times is, what are the main causes of infertility in people today, in your opinion? This was a very popular one.
The main causes of infertility are a hormonal imbalance, and we are exposed to so many environmental poisons today, which are disrupting the hormones, which are contributing to the infertility. What are those environmental poisons? Well, we haven't got time to explore them now, but they're coming in our food, they're coming in our clothes, the nylon, acrylic and polyester, dangerous fabrics. And how many bras are made out of that? So especially when it's touching the skin. Right as I sit here, I have a silk bra on. I have a bamboo underwear on.
Exclusive content.
I have linen and cotton pants. I have a cotton shirt. I'm very fussy on what touches my body because it's contributing to this infertility. You didn't think we'd go there when you asked that question, but our personal care products. The lipstick that I have on is clay and shea butter and castor oil. So even to those areas, and please be careful what you're washing your clothes with. The contraceptive pill.
Oh, boy.
And the growth stimulants they're giving to chickens and animals, like the dripping tap on a stone. Little by little, these are all coming together to disrupt the hormones, which is causing infertility.
Right. I'm happy I asked that question in the end. Didn't expect this answer, to be honest with you. So anyways, ladies, you heard it. Barbara, I don't even know where to start. Absolute pleasure speaking to you today, meeting you. If only I knew, 5-6 years ago that you would be sitting opposite of me, I would have never believed myself. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you for being the voice of truth. And thank you for coming over to Paradigm today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Whether you agree or disagree with her views, it's clear that she has made an absolutely significant impact in the world of alternative health. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful episode of Paradigm. Like, share, and comment your thoughts on this episode, and stay tuned to Entrepreneur TV Middle East for more inspiring stories. As usual, you know the drill. Keep innovating, keep evolving, and keep reshaping the future. With you was Mina Vucic.